Talking about something that makes me so frustrated, scamming. Victims of scams can end up losing thousands of pounds, but do you realise that those scams could actually end up costing our social care system too? Older people are often the target, and this is what makes me so mad. Those who could have paid for their own care are being left without their life savings. It's people who are isolated and lonely that the fraudsters prey on. Dickon Hooper reports.
Raymond Rose is a full-time carer for his disabled wife in Bristol. He's still being targeted by fraudsters. He showed me the pile of letters.
So when did you get these?
This week.
Just this week?
Just this week,
How many this week?
It's about 10 so far this week.
They promise him lottery draws and prizes. So Raymond sent and lost more than £3,000, most of his life savings.
Very sick about it, and it's brought me down a lot because with the small amount of money that we get, really can't afford it. Do not do these at all. Just put them in the dustbin.
Sound advice, but those on the front line only see the tip of the iceberg. Most scam victims don't come forward.
The concern for us is that because people are ashamed and embarrassed when they realise they've been scammed, they are very unlikely to report.
That's Helen Heskins, Regional Lead for Scams, South West Trading Standards.
And they'll go to huge effort to not tell their family about it.
What sums of money have you seen that have been lost?
Anything from a few hundred to a few thousand, and in worst case scenario, 150,000.
All this has a massive impact on victims and their ability to look after themselves in old age. Helen Heskins again.
You see depression, you see a lack of trust in their own judgment, you see people change their mind as to whether they want to live alone anymore and independent anymore. So you find that our older residents are more likely to go into a nursing home care arrangement. There is a societal impact here because the people who could fund their care have lost their money to scammers who are abroad, and now the state will have to pick up those costs.
Many fraudsters know their victims will be elderly and vulnerable, so tackling the root problem of social isolation and loneliness is now a priority. I went to an English language class for elderly Chinese in Bristol, one of 50 projects here, running with £6 million of lottery funding. Bianca Rossetti is from Bristol Ageing Better.
When people are more socially isolated, they have fewer social contacts, they're a lot more vulnerable. If people improve their well-being, they are less likely to be targeted by scams, and especially something where somebody's improving their language skills and their communication, that increases awareness of things like that.
For Raymond Rose, the money is gone, but speaking out means others might not fall victim to a problem that in the end could affect us all.
Dickon Hooper reporting. Ashley Jones is on the board of trustees for Age UK Bristol. Morning, Ashley.
Good morning, Anna.
This makes me so angry that these people are going out and targeting some of the most vulnerable in our society. But I hadn't quite made the connection before that someone who's feeling lonely would be more likely to fall for a scam.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the term which is used now is social engineering, and these scammers target people who are lonely through isolation because they know that human contact as part of the scam may be the only contact they have during the week, so they use that to perpetuate their crime.
And what kind of format do these scams take? Because we think of like things you get in the post, but are some of them actual verbal contact, people ringing you up, knocking on your door?
Absolutely. I mean, there's four principal ways that people, carry out these scams. That's on the doorstep. It's via land mail, which Raymond was suffered. It's getting lesser now because cybercrime, delivery of these scams via the internet is becoming more popular, and telephone is also extremely common at the moment.
Is it difficult for people to come forward when they realise what's happened to them? Because they must be embarrassed.
Well, that's one of the main reasons why it's underreported, and it's a very underreported area of crime, because the word scam sometimes minimises what we're talking about. Scams are fraud, and fraud is crime, and it's a very serious thing. And quite often people, the reason they don't report it is that they can't admit it to themselves that they've been taken in by a scam. Sometimes people fear repercussions, they lose a sense of independence, they become more lonely than they were before. So there's a whole host of reasons which is generally linked to vulnerability of the individual.
And we're hearing now of this impact that, say someone loses their life savings as a result of being a victim of a scam or a fraud, I prefer, it sounds, to call it that, they then aren't able to fund their own care, they are then being funded by the social care system, and I'd never made that connection either before.
No, people forget it costs, well in excess of about £20,000 a year to keep somebody in care. And whereas, quite often people build up a financial sum for their later life so that they can afford a comfortable, twilight years, when that money is stolen from them, which is what a fraud is, it is stolen, there's no other word for it, they lose that opportunity to have that dignified, comfortable twilight end to their life, and then, the rest of us have to pay for it. And that money gets whisked off often into other crime as well. So it's a double loss, really, for society.
Now, you're on the board of trustees for Age UK Bristol, Ashley, but you're also you also work for the police, don't you?
Yeah, the day job for me is I am a detective sergeant in Avon and Somerset Police, and quite often involved in this type of crime. So I see the impact of it on individuals, and that's really what led to me becoming involved with Age UK to try and do something about it.
Is it possible to bring the fraudsters to bring them to justice? Can you do that, or are they very clever?
Well, it's extremely complex organised crime, which generates billions of pounds of revenue a year for these criminals. And quite often, they sit outside the UK, beyond the reach of normal British law enforcement. So it's becoming, particularly with cyber, obviously you can be anywhere in the world and perpetuate this sort of crime. So it's becoming increasingly difficult, although we are, increasing our ability to bring people to justice and to reduce this impact. By far, I think the biggest way of preventing people becoming victims is to educate them of the risks so that they can look after themselves. And
is that what Age UK can do? Can they help with that prevention, but can they also help support people who have been victims?
Absolutely. I mean, Age UK in Bristol run an excellent information and advice service. That runs between Monday and Thursday, between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. People can drop in to our building in Victoria Street in Bristol, or can ring us on 0117 922 5353. They can speak to an advisor who will be able to give them some advice if they think they've been a victim of a scam. Or if you go on the website, if people have the access to the internet, Age UK run an excellent have a publication online called Avoiding Scams, which pretty much gives you all you need to know to stay safe.
And is it true, Ashley, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is? It's an old adage, but it's correct, isn't it?
There's no such thing in this life as a free lunch. So when you get a phone call that tells you you've won the lottery, or you're due an inheritance from a relative that you can't remember, it's probably not correct. And I always use the analogy when I talk to people about this. It's a bit like a gazelle. A gazelle on the plains of Africa has never seen a leopard before, but some instinct within it tells it it's a good idea to run away from it, not towards it. An instinct can keep us safe when it comes to frauds as well. If something doesn't feel right, run away from it. Throw it in the bin, don't answer the phone, don't open the door. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Ashley. Ashley Jones from the Board of Trustees for Age UK Bristol. We're talking scams this morning. If this is you, if you think you've been a victim but you haven't felt able to speak out, do ring someone like Age UK or the police and get some support, because, you won't be the only person that this has gone through. It makes my blood absolutely boil.